Welcome to Authenticity FM. I am your host, Mike Sable, and I am joined, as always, by my friends and colleague, Corey Spiegel and Phil Corrali. Welcome back. We've had a little bit of a break, so it's great to be back. If you have ever wondered how bobsleds, District 12, Microsoft Office, sourdough bread, and cliff jumping all weave into one coherent framework, stick around. It's going to be great. We'll see you on the other side. Okay, so a little bit of context, this is part of the bits. I don't do any prep work. So bobsleds are related to Cool Runnings, the movie, which is related to John Candy, which was related to Funkle. If you've ever seen Uncle Buck, John Candy was the fun uncle, also affable. So remember affable. If you've ever heard of District 12, I'm obviously talking about the Hunger Games. I'm talking about Katniss Everdeen, this sort of feral instinct to survive, to be resourceful, to take on any challenge and come out unscathed, or at least successful in the end. Microsoft Office is really about bold, right? If you want to highlight something that's important, if you want to bring emphasis to your Word doc, you put it in bold. Sourdough Starter is this beautiful thing that is wild and unfiltered and ultimately results in something amazing through a terrific process of science and art and baking, and it all comes together. And then cliff jumping is that thing that's just on the verge, right? You're on the edge of something incredible. It's like on the verge. You're standing over the precipice, you're looking down, and you're making a leap. So affable, feral, bold, unfiltered, and on the verge perfectly describes our guest, Sereniah Breland from Pflugerville, Texas. Serena, welcome to Authenticity FM. How'd we do?
Nailed it.
Perfect. Welcome.
Solid. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Pflugerville, Texas, city manager of Pflugerville, Texas, Serena, give us, I said maybe 30 seconds, but I got yelled at a little bit. So take as much time as you want. This is how I actually do interviews. Tell us, how did you come to arrive in this chair? Tell us your story.
So more professional story, not who I am, right?
No, we actually, this is Authenticity FM. Let's see both.
Okay. Me as a human, I'm a fan of long, deep talks with great people. I think I'm aware. I think I'm a maximalist. I think I'm stable, but on the verge. I'm a nature enthusiast. I enjoy unexpected detours. I'm stubborn and I'm a joy seeker. So there's who I am. How did I get to this chair? I'm born and raised in Texas. I've been a city manager in 4 cities. One of those was in Oklahoma, but spent most of my career in Texas. I've worked in 7 cities. So yes, I am like 85 years old. Or I just did really short stints, but I just kept moving cities. And so 7 cities, I have been in Pflugerville for over 7 years. I said I would be here 3 to 5 years like I did everywhere else. And then I just kind of fell in love with the place. So here we are.
Well, that's fantastic. So I appreciate the little bit of backstory. I also appreciate the personal side. You have watched this. Hopefully you've watched or listened to the podcast. You've liked and subscribed. You've been a long-time listener. A first-time guest. How did you prepare, and what are you most afraid of?
Oh, wow. How did I prepare? Actually, inspired by you all, I've started writing a book. And really what I've done is just taken years and years and years of journaling and notes and dropped it into a document. And now I'm trying to figure out how to put it all together. And so I think it's really interesting to look back at things that I wrote. To be frank, when I was having a really hard time at work, and what I would write about is so different now. And I was looking over those notes actually over the past week. I was writing, I was on vacation, but I chose to write quite a bit. And I was reading about those times when it was hard. And right now it's not that way, but I got into my feels over the last week talking to myself about being in those really hard rooms and just reminding yourself that like these aren't the people that love you, and then to really focus on the people that love you. So I think in the spirit of the holidays, that's been my focus the past week, and will resume that way for a long time.
All right. I appreciate that. I appreciate the ability to go back and to be reflective. What are you most afraid of being on this podcast with us? Because we're a lot,
Um,
I freely admit.
I think I think there's not many people that I admire that I haven't come to realize that they once were scared in a room too, that they felt intimidated, that we often don't teach that part of leadership that says they also were hoping that no one would notice that their voice trembles. And I think being in the room with you guys that I definitely admire and respect, that first thought is, will I be good enough? Will I be smart enough? Will I be worthy enough? And I think it's taken me years to realize that like most other people landed in a leadership position with like, oh my gosh, they picked me. What what are we doing? They picked me. What am I supposed to do with this? And so here I am today, very vulnerable and realizing y'all picked me. And I'm so grateful.
Well, we picked you because this is going to be a fascinating conversation. Part one, there is nothing to be intimidated about with this group because we are our own worst enemies, and the imposter syndrome is thick in the room frequently when we're having a conversation. So you're among friends, in other words, and I think what when I listen to your story and the way you describe yourself, what I think is so fascinating about it is you didn't need any time. You were just rattling off that stuff. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I feel. This is what I think. And I love that because I think part of what we have done too much of over a period of time as managers, as professionals in this field is to put ourselves into this very neat, tidy box that says, but I am a professional and I am trained to do all of these things to make sure that our community is among the best in all of these. And the AAA rating and all, and that's great, but it's terribly boring. And I'm grateful that you jumped right in kind of with, this is me, this is my stuff, this is how I do things. And, I think that's a great way for this conversation tonight to start. So thank you for taking a leap of faith with the three of us. I guarantee you there is absolutely no roadmap that we are going to follow. This is detours all the way, Serena. So you are in the right place from that standpoint.
So, Serena, I feel like I missed my whole career without you in it. You and I only met, about 2 years ago now, as you were coming on the ICMA board. So I feel like there are probably a ton of people who got all of those years. And when we met, I'm like, I had that feeling of where has she been all of my life? And we joked as we were talking this week about being kindred spirits. So, talk to us about the people in your career who hold that space for you, who, when
Mm.
you've met, or even those that you're mentoring and bringing up into the profession, where you're like, these are my people.
Sure. Um, so wow, you got me really. Karen Daly for sure took a bet on me when I wouldn't have believed in myself. And so I was just a kid in my master's. I had quit my job as a government teacher because this professor literally said to me, "You'd make a hell of a city manager." And my response was, "What is that?" And I took this big grasshopper leap and like sold my house, what did all like just went and did my MPA, and I wanted to work for a female city manager, and 20 odd years ago, that wasn't very popular, and still, we won't get into that at the moment. But so I found Karen Daly, and she was 60 miles away from where I lived. So yes, in the snow up, okay, maybe not in the snow, but I drove 60 miles one way to work for Karen Daly, to work for a female, and she had more faith in me than I could have ever mustered on any good hair day. And so I left her and I went to go work at a landfill. So I got my master's, worked at a dump, made everybody really proud. And then she called me back and offered me a position as a director. And I was like a kid, and I thought, what are we doing? So Karen had a lot of faith in me, and she introduced me to a whole lot of really great women in Texas is where it really started. Julie Robinson was one of my mentors. She passed away about 3 years ago, and I distinctly remember our last conversations. I remember when I thought I was being fired in one city, and she came to that town, and she came to a public meeting, and I was tough, and I did really good, and nobody's gonna see me sweat, and I did really great in an executive session. I walked out with my head high, and then I walked in my office and completely cried my eyes out. And Julie was there to hold me up. And then she followed me home like an emotional escort service to make sure that I got home. So it's those that are in the trenches with you. It's those, to be frank, the women that have gone before me that I get to rise on their shoulders. It's the Julies of the world. It's Paulette Hartman. It's Opal. It's Peggy Maris. It's people that have been deserving, and not to mention, of course, a ton of men that also are raising women on their shoulders. So I'll say that we call ourselves the Resisterhood. There's a little group of us in Texas. When we recognize that women were not getting awards the way, and let's be frank, we could go through a Distinguished Service Award in ICMA and see the same pattern. And until people are intentional about recognizing women, because we didn't have them in those professions 20 years ago. And so now that we've got the years that we've been able to be leaders in this country, in this state, then we're starting to see more of that. So I'll say that the women in Texas are powerful and bold, and hold each other up.
So I think contractually obligated at this point to, when someone says something powerful and vulnerable, to say thank you. This is exactly why we wanted to do this, because I don't know anybody that could have said what you just said with as much power and force and impact to our audience. So I'm just really grateful that you're here and that you're willing to say that. I feel like there ought to be like a decoder ring or some sort of a shirt that says Resisterhood, because I don't think I can spell it, but I just love it. So appreciate you sharing the real parts of it. So thank you.
I hope that kind of answered.
It did, because that's the energy I felt when you and I met the first time, and we got to spend a little time together over a couple weekends through those initial board meetings. And it means a lot, because during my time, when I got appointed here, I was the first female to ever hold the position on a permanent basis. I was the youngest ever appointed, and I was the only woman in the top 10 largest cities in the state. And you want to talk about feeling alone, it's there. And so the fact that, you have found a network and can kind of shine the light as, here's a model. I mean, Texas is huge. So you have scale to work with, but that doesn't mean percentage-wise it's any better. And I think that's where we all have a lot of work to do for the future of the profession.
I mean, Corey, you just said it. We continue. You hear it in media. You hear it when I'm introduced. I'm the first female city manager in Pflugerville. I've been a city manager 4 times. 3 out of 4 of those times are first. And yes, I'm proud of that. And I want other women to see that. But at the same time, God bless. When are we going to not say first? When do we get to not have to say that? I don't know if it's in my lifetime. I don't know if the media will stop doing that. I don't know. And so I struggle in this area of like being proud of it, and also saying like, seriously, I'm also the first Gemini. Like, what other characteristics do I need to have by which that these busters of glass ceilings have come before me, but I'm still the first. I struggle with that one.
Well, and Serena, thank you for that. I have had this conversation with many up and coming women in the profession over years and years, where they have said, I don't even think it's an option. I don't think it's practical for me to try. I don't think I'm going to raise my hand because they're not going to hire me. And it's so on so many levels frustrating for me as a professional in this profession to see the quality people who are women who are working their asses off and not getting the recognition that they deserve, not getting the positions that they deserve, not seeing the success, and often saying, I'm not even going to try because I know they're not going to hire me. And, you've done it 4 times. You've thrown yourself in front of recruiters and elected officials to say, look, I'm your best choice. I want the job. What's your advice for the person who says, I don't think I could do it. I don't think they want to hire me.
Sure. I think a lot of us we think we have to wait till we're ready. And I may touch on that a little bit, but I mean, sure, there was a time in my career I'd walk into meetings already braced for criticism. I'd leave work replaying conversations, searching for clues about what I did wrong. I would make myself small, thinking shrinking would make me safer. But here's what I've learned is that you can't outperform someone else's bias. And as I think as women struggle with trying to outperform, do better, work harder, etc., there is that bias that that still exists. So for me, it was learning that, like, even though I can't outperform it, I can't work my way into someone's affection. I can't, comfort myself small enough to fit into someone else's comfort. But what I could do is hold on to my integrity. And what I could do is let their treatment of me refine me, not define me. And that's been really powerful for me, is to just take those moments. So, Phil, it might be that I'm just partially kind of crazy and a little bold, is that in the words of Brene Brown, I ignore the cheap seats, but that took me a really long time of feeling small and making myself small, but realizing that, like, I deserve to be in that room. The problem that I'll say about, you mentioned recruiters, I wasn't the top pick in 4 of those cities by my recruiter. Why is that? Because those recruiters put things out there like, you should be a 20-year city manager. Well, guess who that limits it to?
Yeah.
Not people that look like me,
Nope.
not people of color, not underrepresented people. And so you've gone ahead and had a bias against me. So I'm a round 2 girl. I'm get me in the next round, get me in front of a council, and I can do it. But I've also heard recruiters say things like, women don't want the chair. That phrase has been used in a room where I started getting texts from men. They're like, what does this guy mean by they don't want the chair? I don't think it's that we don't want it. We fear the bias. And so we've got to get out of our vernacular, even putting into the universe that women don't want it. I think a lot of people don't want our chair, but I'm not going to broad brush women to say they don't want the chair.
So I think that's such an interesting point. When Mike and I were talking offline a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I have my recruiter horror stories too. But I think part of that gets into, and we've talked about it on the podcast through a number of episodes, the idea of disruption. The way it's always been done, and you nailed it. There is a very kind of textbook recruitment strategy and what the client book looks like and what even the recruitment process looks like, right? The recruiters are still churning out PDF versions of hiring things in 2025, which blows my mind. And so if we're going to do it the way we always have done it, and I use the term we very loosely in that case, then the results are going to be the same. It's clinical definition of insanity. And for those of us who did break the glass ceiling, it came with a hell of a lot of scars. There was a lot of bloodshed. And I think that scares the next generation because they literally watch it. I've had male colleagues who had a front row seat to having a male manager and a female manager go, you were absolutely treated different. Bar none, nothing to dispute. And until leadership, and that is elected officials, that's recruiters, it's, I feel blessed to do this with Mike and Phil because they are the ones doing it differently. They are the shoulders we stand on, and they are the example, and I'm grateful for that. But that's not true yet on a more broad brush.
Corey, I appreciate that comment. I can safely say, and I think I can speak for Phil, nobody is standing on our shoulders. We're just standing side by side because we're friends and colleagues, and you're better at the work than I am, frankly. And um, Serena, I gotta say it again. Like, I just appreciate the way that you say that. Feral and bold are two of your kind of words that you use, that I used in the opening, and I think they've actually shown up in this thing. So you have a tendency to do the things that are maybe atypical or sort of not a traditional city manager style. And you and I know each other, and I know that you negotiated something in your contract with the city of Pflugerville probably last year because it was thoughtful and well planned, and like you don't do things, you don't do anything willy nilly, but you did do something intentional. For the benefit of the audience, tell us your story about what did you ask for and what did you use as a result of that contract amendment?
I was I was hitting a point. Well, I'll be frank with you. I went through an exercise that I wrote on an index card. Who are you without being a city manager? And I had a 3x5 card, and I struggled a great deal. I'm not a mom. I'm not a spouse. I'm probably not even that great of a daughter. And my card was really blank. And what I really saw was in my career, y'all have seen this, city managers lose their job and their world collapses. And I was feeling like I was still in love with my work, but I didn't love who I was when I was doing it. And so I asked my counsel for a 7-week sabbatical, and with the intention and very purposeful that I was going to walk across Spain, the Camino de Santiago. And so I walked for 32 days, over 400 and something miles from France to Santiago de Compostela. And then I met my mentor, Karen Daly, in Portugal to sit and do nothing for a week. But the purpose of me going, and I had this wonderful counsel that actually was a little embarrassing. I remember when I first asked it, I had a speech ready. You know me, I had a speech ready. I had like the 3 R's. I was going to recover, like, I don't know. I had a whole speech. And I walked in and I told them what I wanted to do. And they immediately were like, go. And I was like, oh God, do y'all like me? Do you even like me? Like, do you want me to come back? I didn't really know. And so they were very supportive, and I have a great team, of course. And it's so funny, everything that I thought I was going to think about, what I was going to do, and what I was going to meditate on, and none of that really panned out. I mean, really, it was a little narcissistic. Like, I was thinking to myself before I left, like, oh my gosh, what's it going to be like to not be needed? And oh my gosh, my calendar is going to be open. And am I going to, like, because I've heard people like retire and they get bored and they don't feel worthy. I'll tell you what, real quickly, I didn't need a full calendar. Quickly, I realized I was perfectly fine. And so it sounds kind of selfish when I say it, but I needed a break. I needed to fill up a tank. I'm not 100% sure what that looks like. I left in August. I came back to work in mid-October. So I'm just now kind of back. Here we are in early December. So I'm still kind of reflecting on what it was. But I I gained a lot of nuggets along it, but it was really, I'm thankful for a team that didn't need me. I think that was a big part of it, is that you realize the world keeps spinning and the lights still come on. And as important as we think we are, um, it was fine.
So that is, I think, an absolute undersell of the trip, because those of us who are blessed to be in a WhatsApp group got almost daily videos and photos. And so while professional Serena might not have had a full calendar, real human Serena was doing something that I think so many people put on their bucket list or their someday list and never do. And you did it, and you shared it with a bunch of us, and it was absolutely stunning. But what was it like to live it?
Thanks. So, I'll try to I'll try to hit the high points. It was hard, right? It was physically hard, but the physical part wasn't as close as to the emotional part. Um, meeting people from other countries. The first day that I got there, I walked with a girl, a beautiful, beautiful girl named Mikkel from Israel, and she was a little fearful to tell me that she was Jewish. We were in a country, Spain, that is very supportive of Palestine, and to watch her touch her chest and say, "This is the first time that I've never worn my Star of David," was really powerful. And here I am in 2025 walking with someone that is fearful because of the religion by which she is raised and carries and believes. And I thought this was really powerful. And I was supposed to meet her on the first day, and I really believe that. And so I will forever be in touch with her. And here and we got to talk about people and love and family and friendship. And she's, under a dictator by which she may or may not agree with, right? And she's defined by that, by other people. So I met her. And then on my second day, I met an 85-year-old woman from France. And I asked her, why did she walk? And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, because there's more to see. And those first days of just going, God, I hope I'm 85 and still thinking there's more to see, because I really believe when we're supposed to live abundantly that we do, right? And so that was really powerful. And that story multiplied a million times, learning cultures learning that laughter and kindness transcends language barriers, learning that if we couldn't communicate in my broken Spanish or English, then I would just have people sing to me the song of Dallas, because you say you're from Texas, and apparently they all grew up in Europe watching Dallas. But I
They did.
really think, nobody cared about my profession. Probably 4 days in, I realized nobody's asked me what I do. And I was a little offended, like, you don't know who I am? Right? And how dumb is that? And I got to have those conversations with people about why they don't care. And the fact is, Americans care. Americans, we tend to put each other in categories. We tend to say that because when you meet somebody, watch what happens in the first 30 seconds. Somebody's going to say, what do you do? And you know what I want to respond with? I want to respond with who am I? I want to respond with something that's full of love. And yes, I am paid to be a city manager. Yes, I think it's important. But when that world crumbles, I'm not going down with it. And so that was really powerful for me to realize that it's not in my title. It's greatly bigger than that. I learned like day 5, I remember putting in WhatsApp that there was a pebble in my shoe and I wouldn't stop to take it out. I don't know why. I was, so busy. And I met this guy, Ben from Bend, this older man. And we were talking and I was like, kind of like in a hurry. And he goes, why are you here? And I made the comment that I'm in search of stillness, because I thought that sounded really good. I thought that was pretty creative. I'm in search of stillness. And he goes, then why are you hurrying? And I just really, like, the rest of the trip, I'm like, no, I'm hugging every dog, every cat. I'm enjoying this. It's not a race, where I'm cranking out 15 to 20 miles a day. And so you kind of get into this forward motion, this momentum going, and you don't want to stop. And then I realized, like, that's what I'm here to do, is to be in peace and in stillness. So removing the pebble was really big for me to realize, like, just stop and get rid of it. At the end of the day, like, aren't I grateful? Did I ever think for a minute, like, ooh, I should have waited longer to make that move, right? And so removing that pebble, I'll tell you, there was a couple real hard days where I thought, I'm getting on a plane. I'm going home. This is stupid. What are you doing? And I was laying in a ditch, like this culvert. My feet were dangling out. And this woman comes up to me and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And so we started talking and I was just like, dude, I don't know why I'm here. What are you doing here? And she had lost her husband 6 months before, Kitty from New Zealand. And I remember thinking, like, Serena, get it together, right? Like, I'm not in that pain, but we're all on that same road. And we're all in different pain at different times. And as cliche it is, you don't know the battle that they're doing. So Serena, put down your stupid banana that you're eating and get up and go. She ended up naming me bitch in a ditch, which is another story. But I realized, like, but on day 32, it was really funny. I'm walking into this, you go to this beautiful cathedral, and I'm walking in. I'm in a lot of pain at the time. And I remembered being in that ditch. And then I walked in, and I tell you what, my chest puffed out, my head got high, and I was like, my money's on me, baby. Like, anytime, my money is now on me. And I needed that, like, to be able to say, like, I did, Corey, I did it, right? And that's a really big, there were plenty of people that probably thought I couldn't do it. And it was like, that was a big deal. I'll tell you one last story, because I talk about forever, but There's 3 days that you're on what they call the meseta, and it's flat. There's no shade. It's 90 degrees. It's hot. You can run out of water. There's many, many miles before a cafe. You don't see other people. It's pretty atrocious. Some people talk about like, oh, that's when you like find God and you're very spiritual. And I'm thinking, no, I just wanted to get through this part. And I was not doing good. So I told myself on day 2 that I'm going to be very positive and I'm going to say nice things about the flies and the heat. And these grasshoppers kept jumping and hitting me, and I was real annoyed. And I remember like swatting these grasshoppers. And then it occurred to me, and yes, I might have been a little bit delirious and had lack of water, but I noticed that these grasshoppers, when they jump, it's like they have no plan of where they're going to land. I really don't think they have any idea where they're going to land, but it's amazing. They always land and they always take a leap. So I Googled it that night, and they jump 20 times the length of their body. They take massive leaps, not knowing where they're going to land. They might land in my stomach. They might land in my hair. They might land anywhere. And then you know what? They get back up and they jump again. And I really thought about all the times that I took some pretty big jumps. And why was I maybe even less cautious in my earlier years when I had no money, nothing, nowhere to go? There were plenty of those moments of taking a leap to move to Oklahoma, not knowing a soul, to be a city manager of Guthrie, Oklahoma. I didn't know anything about it. We've taken big leaps. And why is it that as I get older, am I the grasshopper on the ground that's not even thinking about jumping? So for me, like I needed those 3 days with those stupid grasshoppers to realize that like, baby, I'm always going to land. I just it may not be exactly where I want to be, and it might be in the reeds that are moving, but the fact is I'm going to get back down and I'm going to jump again. And so I think those grasshoppers were a major part of my story, that journey.
So I've lost count on the number of times that I got goosebumps or a moment of emotion or a moment of you're so much cooler than I am. So part 1, remember a long time ago when you were like, I'm not sure, I'm going to be on this podcast. What if I'm not? If you want to take my spot, you're welcome to it, because just the grasshopper story alone is indicative of where that brain is. Serena, you and I don't know each other terribly well. We've met each other probably a handful of times. I remember vividly every conversation I've had with you, because never have I been in a zone in that conversation where I've been, okay, well, what am I going to come up with to say next? Because I'm not sure that I can think of anything, because you are immensely fascinating. Part 1, as you tell this story, and I go backwards to what you said, I don't know, 15 minutes ago about feeling guilty maybe about taking this opportunity. I totally can empathize with that perspective of I I I couldn't possibly take the time. For me, I don't deserve it. I have too many responsibilities. I have too many things. Too many people rely on me as an individual. And so it feels immensely selfish to take something for yourself and to give yourself the opportunity to grow through it. And I think as you told these stories, and I watched your journey on Instagram, and it was like the highlight of my day to be able to watch these reels of you like trudging through whatever it was that day. It's just so wonderful to see how that matriculated in your brain, right? It wasn't just the time, it was the experience. And I think, to tie also to your comment about how Americans always like to say, well, what do you do? Well, this is what I do. Like, that's the only way we can like find any common ground with one another. Again, when we were asking who you were, when Mike said, hey, tell us a story about your life, you didn't start with the professional one. You started with this is who I am. And that's what I aspire toward. I got to tell you, my struggle to some degree is to find my reality outside of my professional world. Yeah, I'm a dad. Yes, I'm a husband, a son, a friend. All of those things are real. But I go to work every day. And sometimes it feels like what I do is that. And if I'm not a cheerleader for the profession, if I'm not a cheerleader for the associations, if I'm not a cheerleader for my community, what am I really? And the answer to that is a whole hell of a lot more. And so I think that's the lesson that you just taught me. And I know there are people that are going to be listening to this who are saying, there's the light bulb above my head. Aha. It is more than just the profession. It's more than just what I do. And yeah, I bring that. I bring who I am to the work. But the work isn't who I am. It's what I do. And so I think it's a worthy thing to remind ourselves. And thank you for doing it so incredibly thoughtfully.
Serena, there's a bit that we do on the show because I hope you know that we don't do any show prep. Well, I don't do any show prep. So one of the questions we always ask our guests is, what is a question that you would have of us? And it's open-ended. Like we might not answer well or with any kind of coherence, but we certainly will try. So what questions do you have for us?
Mike, in 30 seconds, could you tell me what makes you you?
No. I'll try to answer it, but so one of the things that I have always, and this is what's weird. So I separate personal and professional because I always find it easier to talk about professional life because it sort of tells the story of my personal life. So I tend to be uh, at work an ambitious sort of change agent. Like we can do anything, and so there's a lot of cities. So I work in a place that's got a lot of government. There's 81 cities around us, and there's always these perceived like, right, well, you want to work at this community. And I never want to work in a community that has advantages. I want to work in the scrappy, plucky, like crawl through broken glass to make a project come together kind of place. And so I translate that sort of into my personal life. Is right. I have a ton of self-doubt about how actually good I am at this work. And so I have all of these self-doubts about like I'm never doing enough. I need to do this thing. And so that sort of imposter syndrome is really real in my personal life. And then I fake it in my professional life. Through some, like I've got some skills, but really just a bunch of belief about teams and how people can come together. And so I tell this story. So I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and all of my siblings are significant. Like them. So my brother's 5 years older, my sister's 9 years older, my other sister's 13 years older. And when you're that kid, you just get brought places, and you have to very quickly learn how to fit in with a bunch of different groups. And I describe it like I could be a puzzle piece, and I could be a corner with this group, and I could be the one that's got like the 4 open ends on this one, and this one I could be a different shape. And that was sort of my upbringing, and I could go in and very quickly sort of fit in with any group. The contrast and what makes it hard sort of in my personal life then is I don't actually know what piece I actually am, because I've always had to like shift who I was. And so here I am all of these years later, and I'm not quite sure what piece I'm supposed to be all the time. And so that was far deeper than I had actually intended to say. But that's sort of the best way that I can describe it is like, I struggle with finding which piece I really am because I've always been adapting my piece to fit the world around me. Uh, Now I'm going to tell the second part of that story, which is it makes me a great person in an organization. So one of the best jobs I've ever had, I worked for the city of Brooklyn Park. I had 6 jobs in 7 years. You get into the job, you get a role, and then they point you and they go, well, you should go be the community development director for 9 months. Okay. Then you're going to go be the assistant for 9 months. Okay. Hey, we're going to need a finance director in the interim. Okay. So I was able to maneuver and figure out how to be successful in these little short increments. But struggle with how to have that with some depth and some longevity about anchoring. So I regret answering or asking this question so much already,
Love
but
all of this. I love this like puzzle piece. I was starting thinking like malleability, like being like you probably also can mold under pressure without breaking. So I
yeah,
was picturing like puzzle and ability to flex.
yeah, but can you
Um,
actually see through the screen the anxiety that's building up in my body because I'm having a shortness of breath episode. So that's like
love all
also
of this. You little grasshopper, you.
all right. Please, because this is a
So
strategy that I
glad she
employ.
asked you that question and not any of us. So thank you. Thank you.
No, I mean that's actually I
Having
appreciate the curiosity and the question. t- and I'm not trying to change the subject. Although that is a tactic I employ often. Uh, do you have questions for our other hosts?
know when Corey was last a grasshopper and took a leap.
Oh, well, there's the big metaphorical one when you decide, nah, I'm going to blow up my career. And I did. And I landed, to your point. And, as you talked about those long days through the heat, I would say the last 2 years were those days. And I have come out a completely different person. And so what I would have written on the note card 2 years ago, this time of year, fundamentally different than what I would write today. And I think the most important part was, and my circumstances are extreme, good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it, is I absolutely landed. And I landed and ultimately became a much more whole, thoughtful, kind person than when I jumped.
Thanks. That's inspiring. Um, Phil, what would you say to a young city manager that had self-doubt in their ability to move forward?
So, first of all, the self-doubt never really goes away. Um, and that's okay. Like leaning into the self-doubt is how you get to a better outcome. And sometimes you lean in to your own self-doubt by leaning on somebody who's supporting you, right? So your team, in my case, that's my department directors. It's my elected officials, who I turn to and I say, look, I don't know what to do with this. Can we talk? And I think the ability to know that you don't always know the answer and to say that out loud is so incredibly powerful, um, to help others realize that their voices are going to lift the whole place. It's not just your job to lift the whole place and to carry it on your shoulders. It's a team sport. We're there together. We're here to help one another and to find our path, without feeling as though it's our job to be the only one. So I talked a couple of weeks ago about a subject that came up in a staff meeting that I kind of have termed, toxic ownership. And it's when you own the thing so hard that you kind of ruin it for everybody, because you're so invested in its success that you brush off the help. You forget about why it's important to the organization's goals and objectives, and you think about it only in your own vantage point. And I see that happen with some young managers where it's like, the only reason I'm here is because they think that I have all the answers. So I have to have all the answers. And if I don't, then I'm bad at this. This isn't the job for me. I can't do it. And the simple answer is we never have all the answers. if we do, we're not listening to anybody else. We're not actually focused on getting the work done. And God, it's so lonely when you're in that zone. And the work is so much more taxing and less fun and more difficult and less fulfilling than when you bring the group together and you say, look, these are the things that we're going to do together. And I didn't know that. So I've been a manager for 12 years in the same place. I was 33 when I started. I was a kid. I wasn't the first choice. I was the third. You walk into that space and you're like, I don't belong here. And so if I don't have all the right answers the first time somebody asks, then I might as well pack it up. And it is unfair and unkind to yourself to believe that. And I think that's, I look back at those early years of being a young manager and saying, ugh, how stupid was I to feel like I had to carry that burden alone. And I thank I thank I thank God every day for the fact that I had people who would pull me off of that white horse that I thought I was on, so that I could get a little bit of reality that it's not a white horse, it's just a phantom. You're riding on something that doesn't exist, and you need to pull yourself back from the edge, because you're going to fall and you may not get back up again. So, that's the leap that, yes, sometimes you, as the grasshopper, are taking it and you don't know where you're going to land, but sometimes you're just leaping for the sake and you land real hard. And that's not helpful for anybody.
Or you land in Serena's hair in the middle of Spain. Right? It's all the same. So Serena, you and I served on the ICMA board together. Corey overlapped for a day, right? If my math is correct. Walk me through. So in your profession, you've had a bunch of cool jobs. You have also been involved in sort of Texas city management world, and now you're on the ICMA executive board. Second year, Mountain Plains VP, kind of a big deal. Two-part question. So what prompts you to get engaged in stuff within the profession? And then how do you sort of view, what's the sort of the most interesting or sort of most fun part about doing this kind of level of a higher level of engagement in the profession? Curious.
So I spent the first half of my life, we won't go through a whole lot of that, but just trying to building resume, getting ahead. I wanted to be the top, get the degrees, do whatever. My parents had me leave my home whenever I was in high school, so I really had to very early figure it out, right? So I hustled this whole first part of what I'm going to call the first half of my life. Hopefully it'll be something like that. And as I've entered tragically, my midlife era, as I'm entering that midlife era, I realized that I don't care about any of that anymore. Like my ego, everything was made out of ego, etc. And it took, to be frank, it took some funerals for me to realize when I was building that resume, I didn't build my eulogy. And I'm much more focused on purpose-driven eulogy than I am resume any given day now. So why am I doing it? Is because I am done getting an award, done being the president of blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Don't care about any of it at all. All I want to do is lift voices. All that I want to do is to make sure that somebody else has someone speaking at the room. Because the fact is the table is only so big. And we're supposed to make room at this table, this literary table that we always think of. And I think of how many people have to bring their own chair to that table and elbow their way into that seat. And so I think about my role on ICMA is very much in support of our executive director, very much in support of the organization as an organization. But to be real frank, I don't care about being on a stage. I don't care about being none of it. all I want to do is make sure that underrepresented city managers have a voice at the table and that we're figuring out how that they don't have to elbow their way through it. So for me, that's what I'm hoping that I give to that. And I think, Mike, you've seen a little bit of that. I'm pretty open in meetings about making sure that our story is not the only story that matters.
I appreciate that. I have witnessed it firsthand. It is always a joy to find a fellow provocateur to sort of join in the battle, so to speak. When you put a bunch of 21 city managers in a room to kind of go at it a little bit, it's sort of a fun experience. What's a fun or fond memory you have so far, and then what's something you're looking forward to doing?
Can you narrow down the scope?
Of your ICMA Executive Board service, favorite memory to date, and something you're very much looking forward to doing.
That's hard.
No, that's the point of the program. And this is also payback for asking me a hard question. So this is
You're
just
right.
that's how this works.
So I am like really self-entertaining and can have fun anywhere. So I am like had a ball. I can have a ball in meetings and of course just a camaraderie with other city managers. Because the fact of the matter is it's lonely at the top in your own community. We all know that it's really lonely. And I see whenever I go to ICMA, there's an immediate filling of cup. There's an immediate connection that we have because we know like when somebody says like, oh, I'm going through this with it, boom, we've been there, we've seen it, we know the pain. So for me, it's like, I hope that I can always be someone that people do find to be, what was our word, Mike? Affable, that they can talk to me about that we all want to hear those stories. So for me, like the joy is just being in the presence of people that are really smart, but really human and all trying to figure this out. So for me, that's absolutely the most fun part. I can get into like whatever the politics of if there is some, I guess, an ICMA. Like it's just not my thing. I've never been like a big follower of like what's this. I'm not into that. I think sometimes we lose direction when we get too process focused. So I've got plenty of city managers that disagree with me at that table about process. So I sometimes feel like that my voice is there to just also be one that says that maybe the process is too strict. So I would say my most fun is being a little bit of the outsider is how I feel sometimes, but in a very positive way. And the camaraderie and just listening to our international partners that have beautiful accents because I don't have an accent being from Texas. So
Neither do we from the Midwest, so it's
yeah,
all great. It's
yeah,
perfect.
sorry.
Serena.
I was just say I feel very seen having you say sorry.
Sorry.
Huh.
She does a fine job of it too.
That's the
Little
North
tweaking
Midwest.
of the O, and yeah,
We're
she's
much
got
more
it.
nasal in this part of the Midwest. So
Who's
yeah.
the we in this?
Okay, I'm much more nasal in this part of the Midwest.
Yeah, my Wisconsin vowels haven't come
From
out
Chicago.
lately.
Yeah.
Serena, I want to go back to something you said though, because it struck a nerve with me. I've been working on a presentation and I did a timeline of my career, and the jobs are on the bottom and the degrees and the certifications and all the things are on the top. And I too felt for 20 years as a collector, I'm going to call it, of achievements. These things I had to do. And as I was thinking through it, I'm like, where did that voice come from? Where did that necessity that I have to get a master's and then I got a second master's and then I got this certification? Do you think it's because as women, when we had mentors early on, that was kind of the only thing that you could do to help set yourself forward? Or where in your life did the need to build that list and execute it come from?
Corey, I didn't even know I was going to go to college. I left high school because I was asked to leave because I was a menace. I got kicked out of high school. So this was not a girl that was like set to go to college per se. So I took off a year. I had to work. I lived in a crappy apartment in East Dallas, the 635 in Ferguson. I mean, like I didn't have this easy, like, so I think I quickly realized And I'm not going to say on my own, but if I didn't get a degree, I'm going to wait tables at Bennigan's until they close, right? And so, like, there was no other option. Like, I just knew at a very early age, living on couches in an apartment, that if I didn't get a degree, there was no chance. And I had no money. And so I remember going to the public library and saying, what is the cheapest state school in Texas? And she named some. This is like pre-internet, right? And then I remember asking, which one's the cheapest? I mean, like, I chose my college on cheap and pretty. And I went there and I faked my way through it. I would flat out lie to people that I had this support system or whatever. I mean, there's my dearest friends today remember who I was. And I ended up being the vice president of the student body because they'd give me a full ride. So I went out and just hustled. I went out and just decided that I wanted to make change at a pretty early age. And I just kind of figured out, like, okay, if I got to be vice president, then I could get college paid for. And then I was back to basically living in my car. And I moved to San Antonio and like had, a mattress on the floor kind of situation. And then it was like just work. And then it was get a master's because this was as good as I was going to get. So I think I had some mentor-ish, but they were friends. They were friends. Like, I remember a day in college that maybe I wasn't really proud of all my decisions. And I remember a guy named Ryan Johnson looking at me one night in a bonfire. Anyways, middle of the night type thing. Everybody had been partaking. And he said, Serena, you're smarter than this. Nobody had ever called me smart. That wasn't a word that was used. Funny, maybe. Determined, maybe. Ambitious, maybe. But never smart. And it took people telling me that, like, you can do it for me to realize. And then to be real frank, Corey, we both did the same thing. I just wanted to be the best. I wanted to be on top for whatever reason, whatever that comes from. But I got to this point in my career where that's so unimportant to me now. I don't know. Sorry to ramble on. It's just I needed people to believe in me and to say that I could keep doing it. So I did.
I think it's important, and it's not a ramble because, and this is why I feel like we're kindred spirits. We both got to this midlife place and said, that was some bullshit. Like, all of the things I thought were important don't go on my index card. My job title was just that. It was a job title. And once I didn't have it, all of the friends I thought I had, I didn't. And so when your life gets completely upended, regardless of what stage that's at, I think you go through this self-reflective stage of, who do I want to be? Like, who is authentically me? What do I really value? And then you realize how out of alignment you were. And so if we can save somebody a decade of life by trying to be something because they think it's the right thing to do when it's not who they are, I think we've done a good service.
If I might, and this may be unsolicited, but what I think I've seen in the both of you, though, is in your effort to grow and succeed, you have actually used that for the purpose that perhaps other people don't, which is to make somebody else better, to be inspirational, to be the elevator of the voice that perhaps is not otherwise going to be elevated, but for your role and your engagement and your participation in the process, right? So I think I see this a lot. We in this profession pat ourselves on the back with credentialing and pat ourselves on the back with education and achievements and whatever it is, right? And that's all great, fine. It's not something to not be proud of. But how do we use those tools to improve not just our communities, but the people, right? The people that look up to us, the person that needs to stand on somebody's shoulders, right? And whether we want to admit that, I've stood on the shoulders of giants, and I will tell you, some of those giants were women who said to me, you are going to be the one who helps make this better because we can't do it, but we want you to do it. And so I didn't think that I could, but they told me I could. And so when we are in that space where perhaps we say to ourselves, I'm not smart, I'm not whatever that other people tell me that I am, using the energy that others provide to us to say, maybe not, maybe you don't think so, but you are. And so use this gift. And that's what I've seen in the both of you, is this elevation of the people around you with no expectation. There's no like, what am I getting out of this? How many of us can count on two hands and both feet the people in our profession who have said, what do I get out of elevating this person? If I'm not getting something out of it, it's not worth it. There's a dime a dozen in that side of it. But the people who are genuinely interested in seeing others succeed around them, not as many. And so that's you two. Pat yourselves on the back. You deserve it.
Here, here.
All right, we're going to switch to something more fun. And by fun, I mean PFUN.
Thank you.
So
Well done.
I try. I appreciate good marketing too. So Serena, one of the things that is so fun to watch is how you empower your team to like color way outside the lines. And you come to conferences with these amazingly ridiculous t-shirts, and your team's social media is just fantastic. And you guys really do have a lot of fun with how you use the PF. So tell us how that came to be, and you just go for it all in, and your team does. You see it in the photos, but how did you become so fearless? PF,
I think
fearless.
we just, in general, take ourselves a little too seriously, right? Like, when y'all talk to people about what we do for a living that don't know local government, they're like, what? Like, it's so foreign to people, like what we deal with on the regular. And I don't know, I am a big believer so my first job at the landfill, the director never even acknowledged my existence, right? Like, I worked in a closet, nobody talked to me. And a lot of those shaped who I am as a manager now, is definitely that, like, I got to drive a backhoe the other day and pick up a boulder and move it, because we do this day where we switch jobs. And that all started because one of my employees said to me, he's like, it's not like you work or anything. And I was like, bet. What are you talking about? So then I threatened him that I was going to make him do my job for a day and I would do his job. And then we just turned it into a thing. And so we do it every year now, where you can switch jobs. And I just watch to see who's going to the crime scene, because I'm a little nervous. We have some Dexters that work in my city. But I think I'm really cognizant that the fact is we spend 40 hours of our lives, more than we do in waking hours with our families, with these people at work. And I'll be darned if I don't have fun. 20 something years ago, I was doing my master's. I was a fellow for whatever, the COG, the local council of governments. And we had a deck of cards, and they were your values. And you were to pick a card, like, what's your top value? And it was supposed to be a pretty hard exercise, I guess. And I immediately found the card that says fun. I still have the deck of cards. And I put it as my top card. Done. Finished. And the gal that ran this program told me I couldn't have it. I'll never forget it. She was like, you can't be a city manager and lead with fun. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. And so I think it was just early on that I realized, like, we've got to create a place by which people, of course, I can talk about creativity comes whenever you allow it to blossom. And if I sit here and play whack-a-mole, so the fact of the matter is I don't need perfect work at all. I will definitely say that that'll stop progress, right? So it's not even that it's my staff gets to do mostly what they want. And that works in my organization. That may not work everywhere. I totally get that, but it's pretty magical. We do a shadow program in Texas with women. Like I'll have a shadow come for a couple days, and I can't tell you how great it makes me feel when they'll leave and they're like, we would never be able to have fun at work. Like we would never. And I'm like, what are these cities doing to y'all? I don't know. But anyways, I think it's important, but it's all based in it's all based in who I am as a human. That's not something I learned in a master's. It was like, let them have fun. So we switched jobs last week.
So you have so Pflugerville has this awkward spelling, right? It's a PF, and so it's okay. It's not awkward. It's atypical
That was
for
a look.
people
She gave you a
outside.
look.
I know. I saw
Yes.
the look on the
Yeah.
screen. So
Yeah.
it is atypical for other
Yes.
places. But so you guys have turned it into. So
Sorry,
what
Phil.
I really appreciate is the sticker game that you guys have. So try to ballpark just for the audience. How many independent individual stickers do you think have been created since you've been city manager in Pflugerville, Texas?
Easy 100. Like we just make it up. We hired goats, to mow or whatever. And one day I got a phone call from like one of the lieutenants or something. He's like, it's raining and we're not goat people. I'm a city girl. I don't know. I'm from Texas, but I don't know anything about goats. And he's like, dude, they're like drowning. Like the goats have water up to their stomachs. What do we do? I'm like, no. And he's like, well, we're just going to undo the pen. And the goat herder was at a hotel. I don't know. He wasn't there. So what happened was it ends up on Facebook or whatever. All these goats are running down the street. Like we just let the goats out. We didn't know what we're doing. And so apparently they weren't going to drown, but we didn't know. So we have a shirt about it. It's whatever floats your goat. We have, we turn everything. We started a dating profile for the goats. We also aren't goat people. And we didn't know that like they would procreate. So like the first baby, I get a phone call and we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to name it. And this poor goat herder is so done with us. He was like, yeah, there were like 15 babies, like in so many. We didn't know. We don't know what we're doing. So the fact is like, I think we also like, we do make fun of everything. We have a big pecan tree. So we have a shirt that says big pecan energy. Anyways, it's because it's the largest pecan tree in Travis County, and that's why we have it. But it kind of goes back to like, I really let my staff have a lot of fun with whatever they want. But we just make up stuff like, yeah, the goats, whatever. Why not?
So I got to tell you, I was not expecting any of those stories when I asked that question.
Sorry.
And I'm just delighted by all of them because it's great. And so I'm a proud owner of a handful of Pflugerville stickers. So I appreciate that opportunity. And also I was not expecting any of that. And I don't even know where to go. So I'm going to turn it over to Phil to save us.
Whatever floats your goat is something that I'm going to have to just write down and keep on a Post-it note to giggle when I need it. So Serena, was the PF thing before you, or was this something that you really just were like, look, everybody, we are missing a huge opportunity here?
Sure. So there's always been like the standard PF sticker. But no, it went out of control after, yeah. And it wasn't really me. It's that we create a culture that ignores the fringes and just does like weird things. So like it's also just allowing your people to do stuff. And so they're really creative. I'm not. But they do. I always get like first round of stickers. They always bring me stickers because it makes me really happy. And so it's actually a little bit out of control. But we love it.
It's the right amount of out of control, I would say. I think there's some value in and a little bit of laughter and a lot of fun, because the work's heavy.
That's
So
right.
if you can lighten it some way, this is a good way to do so. And frankly, there's as much community spirit building in being able to lean in on this as anything. And so I got to think that your community just thinks it's a riot too, hopefully.
And you hear every once in a while people are like, oh my gosh, this is so overdone, like all the negativity that's out there. And there's enough negativity out in the world that is actually probably like actual needed to be negative, maybe. Like you can complain about certain things, but like this, no. So I don't know, I kind of hype up the game, right? Like that's my role. They watch me for cadence. They watch me for that. Like, what am I gonna think on something? I think we forget that too, is that like, no, it's my brand. I'm going to be cheesy about it. Are there days when I'm like, oh my gosh, can we not do a finance report that doesn't have a P in front of the word finance?
Finance. Yeah.
But
uh-huh.
we're going to do it. Like everything we do is, well, okay, if y'all went right now, okay, I'm going to tell a secret. Maybe nobody in my city will watch. Okay, this is funny. We were in transition of a police chief while I was doing the budget last year. And we always put a department head picture on the budget. I was kind of cranky that day, and it's a picture of our drug sniffing dog. So our actual drug dog is the picture of the department head of the police department of the current budget that is posted online. So I did it because no one noticed.
That's awesome.
And it makes me laugh hysterically to have the drug dog Tymo as the police chief. What's the
It's
worst could
excellent.
happen?
It feels
Exactly.
it feels
That's excellent.
appropriate.
Yes.
It actually
Fine.
it feels on brand.
Totally.
Fine.
Yeah.
Totally.
Nobody noticed. One council member noticed.
What's the dog's name?
Tymo,
Oh,
Tymo.
see, I feel like all the dogs should have a PF
Yeah, we failed on that one. We
application.
failed. Yeah,
Yeah, that's all
yeah,
right.
missed
That's
that
okay.
one. Yeah.
Serena, what's one nugget of advice that you now, post adventure through Spain, career changes, life, would give your 18-year-old self?
I was leaving a little village called Castro Jerez, and it was supposed to be the beginning of the Meseta. And I was told that the Meseta was flat. And so I had in my head, like, gotten ready for, like, thank God, no more hills. I'm just going to go flat. You leave Castro Jerez, and it is straight uphill, like lunging uphill. And I was really cranky. And I got to the top of it, and I've got pictures of myself being like She-Ra that I did it, right? And there was this moment of real clarity where I realized, especially when you're hiking, to always look back. And I looked backwards because you get in this forward motion. And I turned around, I looked back, and it was beautiful. Like climbing that mountain, right? Like it's beautiful. And in that moment, I realized like it pays to look back. It pays to remember the beauty that it was. It pays to remember how far you've come. And then you don't live there, that you just keep going one foot in front of the other. So there was this moment of real clearness about presence. And so, like, all my life story, I could really dwell on how crappy some things were. I could, but I'm not going to live there. I'm going to look back on it. I'm going to realize some really beautiful things came out of that. I'm going to realize that I've come really far from being on a couch in multiple places. And I'm going to be in the present. And then as I started walking, I realized I started getting into my head about the next 3 days were going to be really hard. I was told that. So then I got into that worry. And then it was like, stop. Like you looked back, you recognize how far you've come, be present, don't worry about the future. My younger self, I wish I would have been able, I think both financially and emotionally, to be in the present time of my life then and not caught up on the past and not worried about the future. That's what I got out of Spain.
That was incredible. Thank you for sharing that and sharing your time with us. I'm looking at Phil, I'm looking at Corey, I'm looking at you for final words and final comments. This has been a joy for me as well. I'm turning over to my friends and colleagues.
So I have another one. I will just steal the show because I can. Serena, in the beginning, you talked about writing a book, and you and I traded kind of opening words this week. And I think I said to you, wow, that hit my feels in all of the right ways. Tell us about what inspired it, what you're writing about, why, all the things.
Sorry. So I've mentioned Julie Robinson. She's a longtime city manager, and was with me through my entire career. And she passed away. We lost her to cancer a few years ago. And I realized when I lost Julie, I didn't want any of her possessions. I don't want any of that. I wanted her thoughts. I wanted her stories. I wanted the times that we would talk on the phone. We both commuted, and we would call each other in the mornings. And she would teach me things like when you're in the council meeting and it's really hard, just jot down INMC. And I was like, what is that? And she said, it's not my city. And she taught me some grounding things all the time, like this, like just constant vomiting of wisdom. And I wanted her to tell me all those stories and she didn't. And I didn't want to turn her sitting room into a Hallmark story, and because she wouldn't let me, but I wanted her to do that. And when she died, I promised myself that I would leave letters to my nieces. So the book is called Letters to My Nieces, and every chapter is a letter. And it's just based on core beliefs. And it's just based on things like we see what we're programmed to see. It's things based like be the person you mean to be. It's all the things that I hope that maybe there'll be the only 2 people on the planet that read it, and that would be just fine by me. And so I'm hoping to leave behind stories of what made me me.
Beautiful.
So, Serena, just another word of thanks to you for the time that you've spent and the wisdom that you shared and the authentic you that you brought today. I don't know that I'm surprised by that. I assumed that was what we were going to get, and I'm so grateful for it. One thing, I have 2 daughters. They're 9, almost 10, and 7. I really want them to grow up to be somebody like you. And so I'm looking forward to letters to my nieces as something that I'm going to be able to hand to them and say, this is a person you want to be like right here, right here. Listen, read. Let's talk about how, as you take on the world, because I have a lot of feelings that these 2 are going to be reshaping the world in a lot of positive ways. They're going to need role models, and I'm just grateful for people like you. So thank you for what you've shared today, and thank you for what you share with our profession. City management is not a boring profession. It is not something that, well, it can be. But what it has done, what it has done for me, has been to provide me the opportunity to meet people like this group and to learn from and become better from the engagement that I have. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, is to remind our profession that we are not singular of mind. We are not the same. We do not approach life identically. Yes, we have a lot of similar problems, but gosh, we are so much more interesting when we let ourselves be ourselves with one another. And so thank you for what I will call a really good hang tonight, to be able to have this conversation among friends, and to, I think, become better for it. So thank you for that.
So it's customary that we give you the final word. You did like it's hard to, but like you got it. There's no limit. We can be here for hours. Final words, final comments, please.
No, I think about as I've been writing these letters to my nieces, stay kind, stay steady, stay you. You're not meant for every room, but you're meant for great rooms. That's all.
Perfect. Serena, thank you. We are friends and colleagues. We are grateful for your time and giving it to us and to the profession and to our listeners. And so I'm contractually obligated also to say the Victor Cardenas line of like and subscribe. And again, like reach out to us if there's questions that you have for or things you want to see on the podcast. Your feedback makes us better, so please do that. That's it for this episode. Appreciate everybody. And Serena, thank you so much.